Cassie stood at the entrance of Iron Fist MMA gym, her duffel bag slung over her shoulder and her eyes scanning the walls lined with championship photos and clanging punching bags. The smell of sweat and testosterone filled the air, the sound of grunts and gloves hitting leather echoing like a war drum. She looked out of place, petite, with a messy bun and a hoodie 2 sizes too big, but there was something unshakable in her gaze. She walked straight up to the front desk where Coach Marco, a grizzled ex-fighter with arms like tree trunks, sat sipping a protein shake. "I'm here to train," she said. He barely looked up. "Beginner classes are on Wednesdays." Cassie didn't flinch. "I'm not a beginner." Her voice was calm but firm. Marco raised an eyebrow, but before he could respond, a shadow stepped between them. Derek Caldwell, known in the regional fight scene as the Cobra, smirked as he gave her a once-over. Towering, cocky, and recently crowned a black belt, he was the gym's golden boy. "You here for cardio kickboxing or just to take selfies with gloves on?" he joked loud enough for the others to hear. A couple of the regulars laughed. Cassie met his gaze with unshaken calm. "I'm here to fight," she replied. That silenced a few chuckles. Marco let out a long sigh and turned to Derek. "Fine. Spar her. Light contact. Just see what she's got." The gym gathered around as Cassie slipped into the ring, calm and methodical. Derek, shirtless and grinning, rolled his shoulders and cracked his neck like a peacock flaunting his feathers. "Try not to cry when I fake a punch," he teased. Cassie didn't respond. She tightened her gloves and bowed respectfully. As the bell rang, Derek advanced with a playful jab meant to tease. But in a blink, Cassie pivoted, ducked under his arm, and swept her leg out low, clipping his ankle just enough to send him stumbling. The crowd gasped. She stepped back, poised like she'd done nothing out of the ordinary. Derek's smirk faded, replaced by a look of confused irritation. Coach Marco leaned forward in his chair, suddenly alert. This wasn't a beginner. And from the look in her eyes, she wasn't here to play games. The room was still buzzing from Cassie's first unexpected move, but Derek wasn't laughing anymore. Embarrassment flushed his face as he reset his footing, glancing around to see the reactions of the gym regulars. Eyes were locked on the ring now, not out of amusement, but curiosity. Cassie remained calm, standing in a traditional fighting stance, weight balanced, breathing steady. Derek, pride now fully engaged, decided to come at her harder. He charged forward with a jab-cross combo, sharp and fast, but Cassie was already in motion. She slipped the first jab with barely an inch to spare, rotated her shoulder, and ducked under the cross, spinning behind him so fast it was like watching a ghost move through smoke. Without hesitation, she tapped the back of his shoulder. Not with force, but precision, enough to make it clear she could have done far more if she'd chosen to. Derek turned, flustered and panting, his smirk now replaced by focused frustration. He launched a roundhouse kick aimed at her ribs, expecting her to retreat. Instead, she stepped in and blocked it cleanly with her forearm, immediately countering with a low side kick that landed squarely on his thigh. The crack echoed like a firecracker. Derek staggered. Cassie didn't press forward. She stood still, waiting. Watching. The gym had gone eerily silent. The once skeptical faces of the onlookers now held something different, respect. Even awe. Coach Marco had stood up, arms crossed, watching every move like a hawk. He'd seen fighters come and go, but something about Cassie's control, her technique, it was surgical. She wasn't just skilled. She was seasoned. Derek, now visibly shaken, charged again with a desperate hook, trying to end the humiliation. But Cassie weaved under it, pivoted, and struck with a palm to his chest, enough force to knock the air out of him and send him backward onto the mat. For a moment, no one moved. Derek lay on his back, blinking up at the ceiling in disbelief. Cassie simply adjusted her hoodie, bowed respectfully to her opponent, and exited the ring as if nothing significant had happened. Coach Marco stepped toward her slowly. "Where did you train?" he asked, almost hesitant. Cassie looked him in the eye. "Kyokushin. 6 years. Japan." And with that, the entire gym, once filled with noise and laughter, stood in stunned silence. The following days at Iron Fist MMA gym were different. Whispers followed Cassie wherever she went, curious glances, awkward nods from those who'd laughed just days earlier, and an unexpected hush when she entered the training floor. No one dared challenge her now. Even Derek kept his distance, nursing not just his bruises but his ego. Yet Cassie didn't gloat. She trained in silence, hitting the bags with flawless precision, shadowboxing like a dancer with a purpose. Coach Marco watched from the sidelines, still trying to understand how someone so small had brought his most confident fighter to the mat with such composure. One evening, as the gym emptied out, Marco approached her while she was wrapping up her training. "You're not just talented," he said, leaning on the ring ropes. "You've been through something." Cassie paused, her hands frozen over the bag straps. She didn't look up. "I trained hard," she said simply. "In Japan, I was the only girl in my dojo. They didn't go easy on me. And I didn't want them to." Marco nodded slowly. "You're a fighter. But there's more." Cassie finally turned to him, her eyes weary but strong. "I lost my brother in a street fight. He was the one who started teaching me. I promised I'd never let fear rule me again." The revelation settled heavily between them. Marco understood now. Her silence wasn't pride, it was purpose. Everything about her, from her calm demeanor to her explosive technique, had been forged in pain and refined with relentless discipline. She wasn't here to prove anything. She was here to survive, and to honor something deeper than belts or trophies. The next week, Cassie was no longer the outsider. New students, especially young girls, started gravitating toward her. They watched her with admiration, trying to mimic her moves. Derek, after days of avoiding her, finally approached during cool-down drills. "Can you show me that counter you used?" he asked, sheepishly. Cassie didn't gloat. She just nodded. "Sure. Start slower this time." From mockery to mentorship, everything had shifted. Iron Fist Gym wasn't the same place it was when she walked in, and neither was the people inside it. Behind Cassie's silence was a force that had started changing more than just perceptions, it was reshaping the heart of the gym. 2 months had passed since Cassie first stepped into Iron Fist MMA gym, and the transformation was undeniable. What had once been a loud, ego-driven training space had become something sharper, quieter, more disciplined, and respectful. Where showboating used to dominate the mats, now focus and humility reigned. And at the center of it all stood Cassie, no longer the outsider in the oversized hoodie, but a silent leader who commanded attention without demanding it. Her sessions were now attended by fighters of all levels, and even Coach Marco had started to lean on her for feedback. She never asked for authority, it was given to her by those who had witnessed her discipline, control, and quiet strength. The gym's annual exhibition was coming up, and for the first time, the spotlight wasn't on Derek, it was on Cassie. She was set to spar in the closing match, paired again with Derek, but this time under very different terms. No one doubted her skill now. The room was packed, cameras rolling, new members lining the walls, their eyes fixed on the small woman with the calm, steady stare. Derek stepped into the ring too, but not with a smirk. He bowed deeply to her before the bell rang, and Cassie returned it with equal respect. Their bout was a dance, fluid, technical, and breathtaking. Cassie moved like water, every strike and counter flowing with grace. Derek had improved too, having shed the arrogance that once defined him. The crowd didn't cheer for hits or dominance, they applauded the art of it, the mutual respect, the silent lessons embedded in every exchange. When the bell rang, neither had won. But Derek raised her hand anyway, this time without ego. "She didn't just beat me," he said into the mic, "she made me better." After the event, parents approached Coach Marco, asking if Cassie could train their daughters. Young girls who once sat in a corner now stood proudly in line for her class. Marco offered her an assistant coaching role right then and there. Cassie hesitated, then smiled softly. "Only if we teach respect first. Before punches." He nodded, knowing she had already started doing just that. Cassie had entered the gym as a mystery and a challenge. But she left the ring that night as something greater, a quiet revolution. And in her silence, she had raised the standard for everyone.